Thanks for tuning in to Proline TV as we get set for one of our final two previews, early previews. I guess these are still early previews, right, Jim? We got another.
Well, they're very early because we started like in May.
I don't know about that, but it could be late May, maybe. This is the seventh week, actually. One more to go. Can't believe we're already a week away from our 8th division preview. It just goes by fast. Thank goodness for that, right? That training camp is right around the corner now.
Yeah, I watch it. I don't bet on it. I don't bet on preseason much.
If anybody does, they're lunatics.
Well, it's all about information. If you can figure out what the coaches are doing, there's some advantages. If you can't, then it's a crapshoot. But I'm pretty excited. In this league, in this conference or division, I should say, we all know that the Eagles had the best offensive and defensive lines in the Super Bowl. During the season, it was arguable that Detroit had some pretty good quality on the offensive defensive lines as well, but they got banged up too much. But the Giants have the worst offensive line, and I think the offensive line is key to almost everything. You can't do much without it. You can't pass the ball and you can't run the ball, and you can't protect the quarterback. So when you start off with that, the Giants are the worst. And based on what we saw last year, unless the Eagles lost a lot of talent, they're going to be the best. But then the question comes down to the Commanders and the Cowboys fighting for the 2 and 3 position in this league, because I don't really believe that the Eagles will give it up, and I don't think the Giants have a player.
Well, let's start off at the bottom, as we normally do, with the New York Giants. And look, the Giants are going to be a better team. But as you said, they've got, unfortunately, a big weakness along the offensive line that is still there. They've had injury issues along that line as well. And as you can tell also by taking a look at the depth chart, the new players, especially the ones in, I guess you could say, purple, those are rookies. And they decided to not draft a rookie until the 5th round on the offensive line. And the players in orange are free agents, and they decided to only add a couple of depth tackles. Not starters, but just guys that are just there as depth if there are injuries. And that's all. That's all they did to the offensive line. But at least there are some positives. Their quarterback room is 100% better. Not just because of Russell Wilson, because, we know he's not the old Russell Wilson, but Jameson Winston is a very quality backup. And then they go after a quarterback of the future, come back into the round 1, give Giant fans hope that they've got a quarterback in Jackson Dart.
How much playing time do you think he'll get?
0.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's going to learn from the sidelines. Barring injuries, that's it. And he needs to. He's not one of those thrown right into the wolves kind of players. He would be a disaster if that happened. He needs time. There's a lot to work on, but the talent's there, like any other first-round talent, and it's up to the Giants and Dable, and that's why he was hired, to get the best out of this quarterback. He wasn't able to get the best out of Daniel Jones, so he's going to get one more chance with another young quarterback. And then if it doesn't work, then the Giants will clean house and start all over again. The good thing is, regarding the rest of the talent, though, they added Cam Skattebo, who was one of the more exciting running backs in college football last year from Arizona State. What a great job, Skattebo and Arizona State. What a great season they had. He's an exciting running back, kind of reminds you of an old Mike Alstott type of player, big guy. Is going to be able to, break tackles, make some really cool plays. The fans are just going to love him, eat him up in New York. So I think that was a great pick. Malik Neighbors, too. Malik Neighbors is just going to be a fantastic wide receiver. We saw that last year in his rookie season. He is a clear number one, and that's going to help big time. Meanwhile, on defense, this is really where the Giants are going to be able to keep themselves in games by adding Abdul Carter with the first pick in the draft. They have some of the deepest edge rush talent in the NFL, really pass rush talent, period, in the NFL, because they still have Brian Burns, who is considered one of the best edge rushers in the game. You throw in Kayvon Thibodeau, who is still a very young player. Add on that, you've got one of the best interior defensive tackles that is able to put pressure on the quarterback in Dexter Lawrence. And they have got a very, very strong front seven, including, a couple additions with Adebo and Holland in the defensive backfield. So the Giants defense is going to be really, no question, their strong point.
Well, when you start talking about the defense and then you start talking about, injuries, how injuries creep up in the regular season. And if your defense can stay solid and healthy, they can make no noise and upset. I mean, I'm just talking about division games because that's where you make up a lot of hay if you can beat your division opponents. So, I mean, they start out, let's see here. They start out Washington getting 7 points from the Washington Commanders. That's a lot of points for a young team like Commanders to lay. I like the Commanders. I like Daniels. I like everything they're doing. But usually young teams that haven't been there before, when you put that kind of burden on them and they're psychologically, they're supposed to win, a lot of times they fail. Now they're going to get a lot of credit because they beat up the Lions last year and did a good job in Detroit in that playoff game. But remember, the Lions had lost a ton of defensive players before that game. And it was kind of an unfair matchup. They're not as good as they looked in that game, and the Lions were not as bad as they looked in that game. That was an aberration. But I like Washington. I do. I like them a lot. But laying 7 against a division rival, that just seems like a big number.
So the Giants, whether or not they can be a 500 team or not, is definitely going to be at the hands of Russell Wilson or Jameson Winston. And if they can get those two older quarterbacks to show a little life, then they're going to have a shot. I think they do. I really think they have a shot at 500. I think it's a reasonable goal. And then if things go well and they do, don't have to worry about injuries because they don't have depth. So if this team gets injuries, they are done.
You're talking about 500, 8 or 9 wins?
Absolutely. That's their goal.
Oh.
So
I don't see that happening.
Yeah, well, again, this is that's what I'm saying. It's their goal. So this is a team that defensively is going to be top 10 in the NFL. So it's up to the offense to do something. And that's why I'm saying if Russell Wilson and Jameson Winston can have big years, and I'm not talking about 4,000-yard years, I'm just talking about just play well, play better than you have even the last few years.
The problem with that is that these guys have done that. The last good year Russell Wilson had was 5 years ago, and Jameson has been spotty. I can't depend on a 17-game season for these guys to be that consistent. I can't bet on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But that's what the Giants are betting on. So, especially with that offensive line. They had a really good offensive line. Then you can say, all right, the older quarterbacks, they'll have some time to throw. But you got a weak offensive line and older quarterbacks. And that's not a good match.
They have the worst offensive line of these 4 teams.
Oh, yeah. It's not even close. Absolutely. So, all right. So, yeah, Giants, I still think, though, better team. The fans will have something better to cheer about, some nice young players to follow, but they've got at least 1 more year minimum before they could be thinking about playoff contention. Okay, let's go to the Cowboys. Where am I going to go with the Cowboys here? The Dallas Cowboys.
Marty Schottenheimer's son. Marty was a hell of a coach. Is this guy a head coach? I don't know. I'm not too sure.
Took him a long time. Remember when he was the Jets offensive coordinator, when the Jets went to the AFC Championship? There were a lot of fans, typical, they want, when you have Rex Ryan on one side, and that's where all the bravo and bluster is. And anytime there's something wrong, well, you're going to look to the offensive guy. But the offensive guy, Brian Schottenheimer, actually did a fantastic job in my mind because they led the league in rushing with a rookie quarterback. Back then was Mark Sanchez. And to do that, when you have a rookie quarterback, I think it's pretty impressive. And that's why I think, by the way, I think Schottenheimer was hired. And they also brought in a new offensive coordinator who was an offensive line coach at Arizona. I think the goal is, even though Pickens is here, and even though I think a lot of people are going to think, oh, they're going to air it out, I don't think that's the reason why Schottenheimer was hired and why they hired this offensive line coach, who's the OC. I think they're going to try to establish the running game more. They know they can't just let Dak throw the ball 65% of the time. It's just, you can't do that. And then Prescott's going to get hurt again.
2 years ago, Dak led the league with touchdowns. I think he had 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He had the ability to do that. And he's got, with Lamb and Pickens, they can put up some points. And that's what I think Dallas has going for them. I think they can put up a lot of points. I don't know that they can stop people. So I'm kind of looking for high scoring games out of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to be able to establish the run this year because they don't have a good running back. They don't have a good running game. Javonte Williams was a bust in Denver. Miles Sanders had one good year a couple of years ago for the Eagles, got a payday last year with Carolina and stunk up the joint. Jadon Blue is a 5th rounder and Maffa is a 7th rounder. So I don't think that they're all of a sudden going to become a big time running team. But like you said, at this point, you got Pickens, you got Lamb, you got Ferguson, you got Prescott. So it should at least be entertaining because on defense, yeah, this is the problem. There's some issues here on defense outside of Micah Parsons. And really, he's the main guy, and there's not even anybody that's a close second.
And they haven't even paid him yet, but by game time, they'll pay him, and he'll be paid more. Just like Dak is overpaid, they'll overpay Parkins. It's just the way they do things. They overpay. Now, not that he's not any good, not that Dak isn't any good. They just overpay. Dak is the highest paid player. He's not the best. He's not the best quarterback.
Yeah, they would have been smart, which they haven't been lately. A couple of years ago, if they would have drafted a quarterback high enough, not first round, but somewhere high enough where you say, all right, we're going to groom this kid. And this way we don't have to overpay for Dak. And hopefully we'll find his quarterback. They haven't been able to do that. They tried the whole Trey Lance thing, and that was a disaster. Now they're bringing Joe Milton in, and Joe Milton's got like the greatest arm. And I know Joe Milton as a Michigan fan because that's where he came from. And when I watched him play at Michigan, man, I couldn't get rid of him fast enough. That kid was all arm. That's all. No accuracy, nothing else but an arm. And that's not going to work in the NFL. So, they got to just hope Prescott stays healthy. And sort of like the Giants, but in the opposite way, is that the Cowboys got the offense, still score, but they got no defense. So that's what might maybe make those Dallas Giant games pretty entertaining.
Just bet every Dallas game over.
That's probably the way to go. All right. And by the way, speaking of being a 7-point dog in an NFC East matchup, that's actually what's happening with the Cowboys as well in that opener at Philly. So you got all 4 NFC East teams matched up week 1.
Well, the only thing is with that is a little bit of change there. Let me get over here to this. That's the first game, and there's a lot of 6.5s are popping up too. There's a lot of sharp people taking the 7. I don't disagree with that. But you're also going to look at, I don't see any real line movement, but I see a little bit extra juice on the over.
What's the number?
46.5.
Well, that's not very high.
It may not be high enough.
Yeah. Especially if you think the Cowboys are going to be a high-scoring team and they can't stop anybody.
I think it would be very hard to keep the Cowboys under 21, 24 points in any game. It's going to be. I think it's going to be difficult to do that.
That seems like an over. I'd feel a lot more comfortable going with the over than probably the number myself.
If I had to play it today, I'd play +7 and over 46.5. That's what I would do. But it is early, and we do have to watch the injuries before they actually take the field on September 4th, which is a Thursday night.
Yep, still a long way to go. 2 more months.
Right.
And at this point in time, you're not seeing anything right now, though, where that says, I need to take advantage of this on July 4th.
No.
Okay.
I mean, not because, God, you don't even know if your quarterbacks, well, they probably won't play them in the preseason, but they can get hurt in camp too. So I'm not comfortable with that. No.
All right. And Washington had the little luck more than anything when they were able to draft Jaden Daniels as the second quarterback drafted last year. I mean, everybody, all of us over at our Leds couldn't just yell enough about how Jaden Daniels was the clear top choice at quarterback over Caleb Williams. But the Bears wanted to be the Bears, and that's why they went after Williams instead of Daniels. And I just think that unless you're just someone who doesn't just get, I think, what kind of quarterback Jaden Daniels is, because Jaden Daniels proved last year that he is a different quarterback. He is just not a nice little young prospect quarterback draft pick. He's a special quarterback. And matter of fact, if he would have been the first pick and everybody talked about him the way they were talking about Caleb Williams, then I think he'd even be getting more respect this year. Because I looked at the line, we'll get into that a little later, but the win total. And so I am a little bit surprised that more people aren't expecting bigger things from Washington. I just think Jaden Daniels is a different guy, and I don't see him having a sophomore slump. I don't see him not being able to handle the situation. He's one of those elite guys that is going to retire in 15 years as a Hall of Famer, no doubt. And that's the type of guy he is. And the Washington Commanders have got that guy on their team. And I think they did have a pretty good offseason building around him. More importantly, that offensive line when they added Laramie Tunsil from Houston and also brought in Deebo Samuel for San Francisco to give him some more options in the passing game.
That's a big plus. But when you talk about the Bears and Caleb, he had some of the worst coaching ever. And he came out of college with a little bit of an immaturity issue, but then terrible coaching, terrible offensive line, gave up 68 sacks. And he still had 20 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions, but a lot of sacks because they held the ball a lot. But he's got an offensive genius at head coach now, where he had terrible coaching.
Sure.
So
he'll be better.
You could see a positive regression from Caleb, and maybe, we don't know, you might see a negative regression from Daniels.
Yeah, again, I don't think we'll see that, but I think that all depends on what everybody's goals are for Daniels. I mean, I'm not saying that he necessarily has to go out there and throw for 5,000 yards and win the quarterback numbers and win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying all that, but do I think he's going to have more bad games this year than he had last year because he's still young and all that stuff? No. He's a different player.
They're going to key on him too. They're going to have tape on him. The coaches are going to be,
and that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to matter.
But it's there's a lot to prove here,
and he's going to do it in my mind. So again, I don't know about him winning the Super Bowl, but
I'm not going there. No,
that all depends on this team.
I already know who is going to win the Super Bowl. I told you weeks ago.
Yeah, we've got we just got to wait about 6 months to payday. So defensively is really where Washington is going to have to, if they're going to be a real Super Bowl contender, that is definitely the side that is going to have to prove it. They don't have to be top 10, because when you have a top quarterback and a really good offense, the defense just has to be middle of the road at worst. And that's and I think they can get there, but still they're going to have to get, better play from some of their new guys. They added some players here, as you can see. Nobody transcending, so it wasn't like they brought in a free agent or a rookie that is going to just all of a sudden, be a major difference maker. They don't have one of those new guys, but they just got to be better. That's all. I mean, they added some nice pieces, and another year in the system. Quinn is the head coach. He's overseeing the defense, and I think Lattimore is probably a really big one there, because when he came in last year, he still wasn't himself. He was a little bit banged up. And we know that if he's healthy and his head's on straight, he's got the ability to be a number one corner still at this point in his career. I need to see more proof this season as the season wears on that Washington's got a defense they can rely on.
That's very true.
All right. Let's go to the Eagles, and we know they lost, as any Super Bowl team does, a lot to their team. And did they replenish some of those losses with enough talent? Well, we know that they have one of the better front offices, if not the best, definitely top 2 or 3 in the NFL, which is why they won a Super Bowl. We know the quarterback's good. We know Barkley is amazing. We know they've got a really good top 1 or 2 offensive line. They've got top 2 receivers, bang, dang. So I don't see any difference. The only starter that left is a guard. So I don't think it's a big deal. I will say this. To me, the Eagles line, because remember, their center who left a couple years ago was a Hall of Fame Eagles center. Juergens comes in and does okay. Steen and Dickerson are just okay, which is why they went out and brought in Matt Pryor, drafted Drew Kendall, and brought in Kenyon Green in a trade. That's a decent unit. I think sometimes when you have an elite offensive line like the Eagles had 2 years ago, it can you get a reputation. Last year, it was one of the best in the NFL, but again, it's because they got 2 of the best tackles in the game still. And they're okay in the interior. And I'm not trying to say it's a bad line. I'm still one of the top 2 or 3 offensive lines in the game. And that is still going to be more than good enough for the Eagles to come back and win another championship. The problem is going to be, I think, if anything, on the defensive side, because they lost one of their top players on the defensive line. There's a couple of injury situations to keep in mind. But for the most part, it's still, even though they lost some talent there, a very, very solid offensive line. They're very good up front. Jalen Carter is one of the better players along the defensive line. They brought back Zach Bond. Everybody's real happy about that. They thought they'd lose him. I think the secondary, to me, is the one part that if I'm trying to beat the Eagles, that's how I want to try to beat them. There's some good players there, but there's also a lot of young players there. So that's how I'd like to beat the Eagles, is through the air. I think I'd have a much better chance doing that than running the ball. But hey, the only thing knocking the Eagles is just how hard it is to win back-to-back Super Bowls. Did I lose Jim again? Oh, there he is.
Nope, I'm here.
I was done.
I'm here.
Okay, I'm done.
What's that?
I have been done for 15 seconds. You can go now.
I guess I missed what you said. It must have blanked out. But I'm optimistic about the Eagles.
It's the 4th of July, everybody. Cut Jim some.
Can you not hear me? Can you hear me?
Hear you? Yes.
Oh, okay. The offensive and defensive lines for the Eagles were the keys to their team last year. And as long as they didn't lose anything perceptible there, they're going to be very tough to beat in this division.
Well, that's
Very
the thing. I mean, they did lose a key guy in the defensive line, as I said. So we'll see if how much that hurts them possibly. And the offensive line, as I mentioned, it's a really good line. Do I think it ranks up with one of the top lines? I think the Eagles 2023 line is a lot better than the 2025 line. But it's still one of the top lines in the NFL, and it's not going to prevent them from winning a Super Bowl. That's for sure. So
you got to remember last year when they beat up on the Chiefs offensive line was terrible.
Yep.
And when Washington beat up on the Lions defense was terrible, all because of injuries.
That's right.
So both of those ratings off those two games were inflated because of the opponent's injury. So we have to take all of that with a grain of salt and look at these teams a little bit more back down to earth. But I do not feel the Giants or the Cowboys are real contenders unless injuries creep into this Commanders-Eagles, because I see the Eagles and Commanders finishing 1-2.
Yeah, it seems like that. Like you said, it would have to take a quarterback injury from both teams to get the other two teams in the mix. I don't think that there are any awful teams in the division. I think the Cowboys and the Giants can have goals of reaching 500 if everything goes right, and it wouldn't totally shock me if it happened. But
we get to take a look at those win totals. It'll be interesting to see that.
Yeah, and if we start off first of all with, let's see, here are the Super Bowl odds. First of all, you got the Eagles as the favorites, the co-favorites at 6-1. Washington at 18, and then you have the rest. Cowboys aren't going to the Super Bowl at 50, and neither are the Giants at 200. So I guess the question is, it's way too early to risk the Eagles at 6-1. So are the Commanders at 18-1 value on July 4th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because you're basically 1-2 in that division, and an injury here or there to the Eagles could make a difference.
Yeah, 18-1 is not bad for a team that went to the championship game last year with a rookie quarterback.
Correct.
So if they can take that next step,
and what did you say that Dallas was? What's the price?
50.
50?
Yep.
Yeah, but they're not going. They're not getting there. They're not getting there.
No. Dallas is an off-season away for acquiring some better defenders, and I don't even know if they've got the young players to develop, if they've got the salary cap space to add. Yeah,
well, they've been saying for years, as long as Jerry's running the team, they're not going anywhere. It's been 27 years, so I think that prediction has been pretty accurate.
Okay, so that's so would you then take Washington at 18-1?
To win, this is a Super Bowl winner?
Win a Super Bowl.
No,
yes.
not to win the Super Bowl. No.
Okay.
It's not high enough.
Let's go to division numbers. And
that's more interesting to me.
And you've got Washington is 2-1. Eagles are the favorite, of course. Cowboys 6-1. Giants are 25-1.
I wouldn't make it a big bet, but I'd put a small. If you're a $500 bettor, I'd probably put $100 on Washington, but not big. It's not a big enough price.
Yeah. Okay, now let's go to the win totals because I was looking at the win totals and before we went on here, and I was a little bit surprised, but we do get more options here.
This is all DraftKings?
Yes.
Yep.
So let's start with the last place Giants. So now we got more options, so we don't have to guess if we went with another one. What would it be?
I like that. Yeah.
So here we go. The Giants are their number is right here at over 5.5, plus 125, under 5.5, minus 155.
Well, that means that the favorite is minus, so the favorite's down. So what's the next level? 4.5 under. Yeah, it's a 4.5, maybe a little low.
Yeah, I do.
That's too low.
Look, I don't
probably,
I don't have a problem thinking the Giants can win 6 games.
I'd probably say plus 125 over 5.5 is probably
Yeah.
the better bet.
I think so.
But you're not asking. This isn't going to be a. If you
No.
get the 6, it's a prayer to get the 7, but you might get the 6.
Yeah, I wouldn't. This is one of those where I'm definitely in on the over 5.5. And if I was looking for a couple of alternative lines out there, I wouldn't say no to over 6.5, 2 to 1. I'll have better options probably, but that's one I would consider. All right, Dallas. Let's see where Dallas is. The Dallas Cowboys. They are at 8.5 plus 120, under 8.5 minus 145.
Favorite is.
And then there's the 2 alternates. How about minus 7.5 plus 135?
You mean under 7.5?
Yes, plus 135.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Under 7.5 plus 135. Okay, now let's go to the Washington Commanders. And Washington sits here at, this is the one that surprised me. It's only 9.5. It's 9.5 minus 120. So it is minus 125, but it's still 9.5. Under 9.5 plus 105. So 10.5 is 150. I'd probably take that. I'd probably go over 10.5 plus 150 to tell you the truth.
I agree with that.
And then if you want to go crazy, you think they're going to have even a better season than that. 3-1 odds on over 11.5.
These other teams are too competitive. No, I like the 9.5.
The 9.5.
I mean the 10. Excuse me, the 10.5. 10.5 plus 150.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I was saying about the Giants. I would consider that, but I would much rather.
I think the Giants and the Cowboys they're not that bad that they can't upset these teams. You know, so
Sure.
it's just too close.
All right. And then we've got the Eagles, who are 11.5, 110 even down the line.
11.5 minus 110.
And the alternates. Yeah, it's hard.
I like over 12.5 plus 200.
Over 12.5 plus 200. Okay. So out of the 3 win total decisions, 3 of them were the alternates. All 3 of them. Philly over 12.5 plus 200.
That's because I'm looking for some positive EV, and I'm getting basically all I have to do is hit one of them and I can break even. I mean,
Washington 10.5.
If I hit 2 of them, I'm going to make good money.
10.5 plus 150, and Dallas under 7.5 plus 135. So there you go. Those are all of the numbers for the NFC East, and the AFC East is going to be next week. Again, you've already said that you are not going to go with either of those week 1 lines. Philly and Washington 7-point favorites right now over the Cowboys and the Giants, respectively.
I would if I had to, I would be shopping the numbers. Of course, I'm not going to bet them now, but I'd be taking 7 on both teams, on both dogs, because you know a lot of times when these teams come out of the non-preseason type stuff that we used to have, they don't play any starters, and it can be a little sluggish. which gives you a little bit of a problem betting too many overs because they're not sharp. You know, they don't. This isn't preseason years ago where the starters played and you got a little bit more reps. They practice now without pads.
Well, I'd like to see the numbers on that. I'd like to see like the last 2 to 3 years. What are the? That's where Victor comes in. You'll find out from Victor when you talk to him. What are those? What are the first opening week? What's the last 2 or 3 years averages telling you? Overs or unders? So,
he would have all that stat.
Yeah. And that's a show that we're going to be starting in just a matter of weeks here on the channel. So look out for that. Victor King will be back. All NFL Victor. Props also, not just totals, but props. And then, of course, Jim will also be on with Andy to talk some teasers as well as alternate lines.
Actually, Andy and I did a podcast this morning that was pretty good. You should watch it on the channel. It's opening lines and moves on July 4th. We did it today. And we will do it again in a month, updating what happens over the next month. But next week, we're going to go in and start talking about some of the stuff that we're over and under win totals for all the teams and some alternate lines. We're going to dig into that. And we're also going to look at advantage teasers. There's certain numbers that I believe in teasers, but only when you can get advantage numbers. For example, let's say you have a 1.5 point underdog and you want to bet the dog. First of all, you never cross zero with a teaser. So what I mean by that is, let's say the Giants, hypothetically, the Giants are a 1.5 point favorite. You like the Giants. You're not going to take 6 points and add it onto the Giants, which is giving you're laying 4, with the Giants. You don't do that. You don't never cross zero because you're giving away a number that you're not getting 6 there. You're giving away 1. But if you like the other side and you add 6 to it, you're getting 7.5. So what you're doing there is you're passing 2, 3, 4, and 7 to get to 7.5. So you got an advantage line going through all those key numbers. And in football, they're really important. I mean, even a 1 point is important now because of the 2 point option that they have. So when you're crossing those numbers, you're giving yourself an advantage. And Andy and I are going to dig into that deeply next Friday morning. So that's part of what we're doing. Now, we started the money management. We talked about 2-3% bankroll thing, but this is an advancement on that. We're not calling it money management necessarily, but how to make bets and actually win. A lot of people can tell you how to bet, but how to bet and win. I don't care about betting. I only care about winning. I'm not into that.
Well, that's why it's a tricky word, gambling, because nobody wants to gamble.
It's really investing if you think about it.
That's what it should be. It shouldn't be gambling.
If you're a day trader on the market, you're investing. How much? It's just not any different than gambling on sports. It's just a different commodity that you're betting on. So to me, it's all about winning. At the end of the day, whether I make $50 or $5 million, at the end of the day, I want to make money. That's the key. And that's what we're going to teach you how to do. So when Victor comes back, and I know Victor's been in this business a long time, and he's excellent at what he does. But the thing I want to impress upon Victor is he has so much knowledge as a teacher to teach advantage play. He has that. And once we get him into teaching, I think he'll really enjoy it because he is one of the most knowledgeable people that I've ever talked to, especially when it comes to totals. But that, and you can play totals. If you're going to play over 42.5, Okay, play the over 42.5. But how about if you bet over 44.5 or 45.5? Now think of the numbers you're getting. Instead of laying 1 to 10, you might be getting plus 350. So you're not always projecting the game to go over by 1 point. It might go over by 10 points. Suppose you make a $50 bet on a game to go over 6 points over the number that's actually posted. Now you're talking about getting 6 to 1, 4.5 to 1. This is advantage play. So this is what we're going to get into.
All right.
We're going to teach you how to win money. I've been doing it for 6 decades. I'm going to teach you how to do it.
Next week, it's the AFC East, and that rounds out our early division previews. And then in 2 weeks, Mark Lawrence will be joining us, and we're going to go into a whole host of things, including we'll start talking some college football on this show as well. When the regular season begins, Jim and I will be on Mondays to recap the weekend in the NFL and college football. And then this show will remain on Fridays with the three of us, Mark Lawrence, of course, as it will be the last show that we'll do heading into the weekend to get our final take on what we think is going to happen on Saturday, Sunday, and even on Monday each week in football. So, Jim, looking forward to wrapping this all up next week, and we'll have many more of these to go. We're just getting started.
Well, it's exciting. I'm excited about baseball. I'm excited about what's going on, all the things that are happening now. But when you start talking about football, especially for me, the NFL, which is a passion, I get really excited about it. I don't need to sleep as much because I just want to get up and do more studying, research, and podcasts. I love doing this. I mean, if I do 20 a week, it doesn't bother me.
All right. Well, we'll do at least one more of these to wrap up the NFL division previews next week right here on Pigskin Fridays. For Jim Feist, I'm Greg DePalma. Have a great 4th of July, and we'll see everybody again next week.